NASCAR returned to Bowman Gray Stadium for the first time since 1971. They had the Clash here this year, and this is the first time I think that the Clash has ever been held at Bowman Gray. And oh my goodness, heat races, 2 of them were insane, crazy. Qualifying itself, kind of wild in its own way, not really like wrecks and spins, but just the way that the leaderboard shuffled through different groups. Anyways, as I said, 2 of the heat races, crazy, spins, wrecks, retaliation, typical Bowman Gray, just chaos. And then we get to the LCQ, more chaos, more drama, people spinning, people wrecking. A car, a bright red car, with a bunch of duct tape on the front of it and on the sides of the fenders, ends up making the main event, finishes second in the LCQ to make the main event. And then we get to the main event, actually tamed out quite a bit, actually. I think we only saw 2, maybe 3 cautions in the first 100 laps before the halftime break. Saw a couple of cautions right off the bat, but then a lot of long green flag runs. But I tell you what, it was actually kind of a decent race. Once again, the main event itself, not the chaos that we were expecting after we saw those heat races in the last chance qualifier, but the main event itself, it still had its moments. We saw some bump and runs. We saw some cleaned bump and runs, I might add. We saw some bump and runs yesterday that were bump and dumps, or bump and run where you shove someone so far out of the groove that it's you bump and then you and 3 other people run while they drop like an anchor. But we saw Chase Elliott make what was the eventual winning pass on Denny Hamlin. He had to bump and run Hamlin. And then Hamlin and Elliott ran side by side for a good 7 or 8 laps. I mean, that was something that surprised me, and I feel like a lot of other people, is I thought this was going to be a bottom-dominated race. Like, if you were on the bottom, you're making the pass. If you're on the top, you're screwed. Get out of there. But we saw a couple instances. I think it was Denny Hamlin on Tyler Reddick made a really good pass for third. We saw people either able to make a pass or at least hold their own on the top, which made for some good side-by-side racing, and it didn't get too dirty in the main event. We saw the occasional someone would hit a storm drain and wash up the track, or, someone just misses a corner, locks up, but for the most part in that main event, as I said, kind of decent racing there. But the LCQ, I want to go back to this. Ty Gibbs was mad at Justin Haley, this one incident. And Ty Gibbs spun 3 or 4 times in the LCQ. He had a rough day. He did not make the main event. But Ty Gibbs goes to show Justin Haley his displeasure and just give him a little side swipe, give him a little bump under caution. Well, I don't think Ty Gibbs had this in mind, because he flew. I'm not even kidding. We're at a quarter-mile racetrack under caution, and Ty Gibbs hit Justin Haley at the perfect angle that he caught air. How? I don't know. Physics, gravity, lift. I did not expect to see a car flying. If I did, I expected them to see maybe you hit the grass and then you start tumbling, kind of like we saw with Ryan Preece at Daytona. But no, not this. No, I did not expect to see Ty Gibbs flying through the air under caution because he was mad at Justin Haley. We saw a bunch of kind of just chaos up front in the LCQ. Like, it felt like the LCQ was a 75 race, and we just saw 100% all the time. Everyone bumping each other out of the way, everyone shoving each other, wrecking each other, spinning each other. And that was kind of the tone for that race. But then we got to the main event, and the main event was like, okay, we got 200 laps. These are Cup champions, Cup Hall of Famers, Cup Series winners in this group. And that's not to say that there were none of those in the LCQ. I mean, we had Larson in there. We had AJ Allmendinger in there. But, just the 200-lap main event seemed more tame. We saw, as I said, we saw a couple cautions right off the bat. I think it was Kyle Busch spinning, and William Byron got pinched on the wall, and he ends up going and wrecking. Outside of that, everyone kind of respected each other. Maybe, as I said, the occasional bump and run, but nothing really egregious, dirty, or crazy. Byron and Larson spun out a few times tonight. There was no big incident. Chase Briscoe, I think, was the only DNF, and it wasn't even that crazy of an incident. as I said, the main event really wasn't that chaotic. Like, everyone was coming into this main event thinking, oh my goodness, like after that, those heat races, after that last chance qualifier, okay, the first 100 laps being tame, no need to kill someone or piss someone off on lap 86 of a 200 lap race. But, after the start of lap 100 and we started to get going and got a couple cautions, it was like, okay, intensity's ramping up. And once again, we still saw some intensity just from a different perspective. The intensity at Bowman Gray normally is wrecking people, spinning people, fighting people, tempers flaring, people jumping over to each other's cars, throwing things at each other. But NASCAR in this main event brought a different intensity. As I said, we saw the normal Bowman Gray intensity in the heat races and the LCQ. Main event itself, not really. All the incidents were kind of just typical short track stuff. But as for the results of this main event, oh how I've missed you. Finishing results of a race. I have missed you so much. I haven't stared at you since November of 2024. All that year ago, technically months, but I did miss you. Anyways, let's get on to it. Final results of the race. Chase Elliott wins his first ever Clash. He wins in NASCAR's return to Bowman Gray Stadium. Wish it was in the blue paint scheme. I'm just the white paint scheme. Why does it exist? I don't know. I love how my first instinct, the last 2 NASCAR races I've talked about, my first instinct is to talk bad about the paint scheme. That's not why we're here. Chase Elliott wins his first ever Clash. This very much reminded me of Joey Logano's All-Star win last year, where if you're out front and you're controlling this race, like, you're in a good position. Now, just like North Wilkesboro, it's a short track. Someone could bump and run you, bump you out of the way. But once again, just like Logano last year, Elliott had a great car. He had driven well all weekend long. He was on pole for Heat 1. He was on pole for the race today. He led, like 171 of the 200 laps? I mean, Elliott just dominated this race. He lost the lead from Denny Hamlin with like 3 to go at the halfway point, so like lap 97. Hamlin led for about 20-something laps, 28 laps, 26 laps, whatever it was, and then Elliott was able to get it back, as I showed you, with that bump and run on, I don't even know what lap it was, but lap 150, let's call it. But chasing him down was Ryan Blaney, and Ryan Blaney, man, what a drive from him. That was honestly the most exciting part of this race. Ryan Blaney had to take the points provision, which meant, he did not qualify via the heats. He did not qualify via the LCQ. So he had to use a points provisional to qualify for this race. He started dead last, 23 cars, so 23rd, and he was able to march up through the field. 20th, 17th, 12th, 8th, 6th, and there's no pit stops in this thing. So it's not like they did some pit strategy, some alternate different strategy to get up there. He passed everyone. Now, sure, I'm sure somewhere in there you could find a car spinning. That's a pass, and how much does that count? But I mean, we watched him make some pretty good moves, and he was right on Chase Elliott's bumper there at the end of this thing, but just ultimately fell short because, as I said, Elliott just really good car, drove well all day long, and he got his first Clash win. So Elliott and Blaney both starting the year off extremely strong. Elliott only 1 win last year in 2024 Texas. Picks up a win, doesn't count towards his all-time win total, but it's a win. It's a trophy. That's the whole reason you race in these exhibition races, is for the trophy. Ryan Blaney, as I said, great run for him, but ultimately falls short. And once again, it's not a points race. You don't really get anything if you don't win the race. So for everyone else, I hate to say it sucks, but you don't get a trophy and you don't get points. So I just hope they had fun. That's what I'm here to say. But Ryan Blaney, as I said, really good day. Really fun to see him charge up through the field. Denny Hamlin finishes 3rd, the defending winner of the Clash. Won it last year at the LA Coliseum. Great day for him. Elliott and Hamlin both won their heats, and they stayed up in the top 3 all day long. I genuinely cannot think of a moment in this race where Elliott or Hamlin was outside of the top 3. I mean, these two, they probably led every single lap in this race. I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2 laps they didn't lead, but these two led every single lap that I know of. I mean, just great drives by both of them. Last year Joe Gibbs Racing made it an emphasis. They had struggled on the short tracks and road courses, and when they made that emphasis to get better at that style of track, they won a lot of races last year. Hamlin won at Richmond and Bristol. Christopher Bell won at New Hampshire, which it's a longer track, but it races like a short track. And we saw Toyota really make a big push. So maybe Chevy's doing the same thing, as we saw how good Elliott was tonight. I don't know. But once again, as I said, Hamlin, a great night for him. Joey Logano, usually the king at new racetracks, always winning the first race at a new track. Didn't quite do that, but fourth for the defending Cup Series champion. Fifth place, Bubba Wallace. Actually was in the top 5 for a good chunk of the night. Did a really good job here. Reminded me, once again, I'm going to reference it again. Actually, it's a different North Wilkesboro race. I lied. I'm referencing something else. 2023, that first North Wilkesboro All-Star race, Bubba Wallace finished second in that one. A really good run there and a really good run here. Finishes 5th in the first ever clash at Bowman Gray. 6th place, Ross Chastain had to come up through the field, had to race, make some passes. I was watching the SVG on board, so I got to see Chastain kind of slice and dice through the field around SVG, but that was did a pretty good job, kind of similar to Blaney, moving up through the field. 7th place, Austin Cindric, really good run for him. Really good for Team Penske, all 3 cars in the top 7. 8th place, Tyler Reddick, won one of those heats yesterday, but ultimately he was up front for probably the first half of this race, like in the top 3, top 4. But then as the race went on in the second half of this race, they just kind of kept fading and end up finishing 8th. 9th place, Shane Van Gisbergen, his first ever clash. Started this race 10th. Qualified via the heats. Did not need to use the last chance qualifier in his first ever heat. Or his first ever clash, excuse me. Great race. As I said, I have a double TV. The double TV TM pending. For legal reasons, that's a joke, because I don't know how the trademark stuff works verbally. Sidetracked again. I have the double TV with the main broadcast, and now that they on HBO Max or Max, whatever they call it, you can watch an onboard, and it has the radio. So I had SVGs up there. It was really fun to watch him. We've talked about it last year with his Xfinity Series races, but kind of learned the ways of NASCAR. When he bump and runs someone, when he gets bump and ran, to see him kind of learn the etiquette, in a sense, of NASCAR, to see how he races these other drivers. Is he going to race you? Is he going to be aggressive right off the bat? Or is he going to wait to see how you race him, in a sense? So we saw a couple times where, he'd get bumped out of the way. Austin Cindric bumped him out of the way, and what did he do? He came right back at Austin Cindric, bumped him out of the way. Now, Austin Cindric obviously ended up staying ahead, but he made it a little bit of a battle. So it was interesting to see as the night went on, to see how he adapted, and we saw a little bit of it yesterday. But tomorrow, for the Monday after our weekly live stream that we talk about the previous week's race, I'm going to do a little bit more of an in-depth SVG segment, and then I'll cut that and I'll put it into its own video, because I know so many of you are SVG fans from Australia and New Zealand. But we will talk about that more tomorrow night. I'll go into more detail. I'll probably watch the replay of the in-car camera. I know I watched it tonight, but I was switching volumes and stuff with the main broadcast. So, as I said, we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth tomorrow. 10th place, Chris Buescher, one of the heat winners, kind of similar to Reddick, was up front most of the night, but then just those last 100 laps just faded back and back and back. Ryan Preece, his first race in the 60, 11th. Christopher Bell, 12th. Josh Berry, 13th. By the way, only 11 cars on the lead lap tonight. Todd Gilliland, 14th. 15th, Kyle Busch. 16th, Carson Hocevar. 17th, Kyle Larson won the LCQ. Had to use that LCQ to get into this thing, as did Josh Berry. 18th, William Byron. 19th, Alex Bowman. 20th, Noah Gragson. 21st, Brad Keselowski. 22nd, Daniel Suarez. 23rd, Chase Briscoe, a DNF. But as I said, this first clash at Bowman Gray, so when we compare it to the Coliseum last year, the Coliseum was it felt like a completely different racetrack. The Coliseum had curved straights. There was that inside wall. It was freshly paved every single year. And even on the bump and runs, it felt like you really had to knock the crap out of someone to make a move. Whereas tonight, it seemed like standard short track stuff where You had to bump them, sure, but you didn't have to annihilate them. You didn't have to send them to Wake Forest like Ryan Priest did last night. Cleaner bump and runs were available. We saw the tires kind of wear out a little bit. We saw drivers slipping and sliding, which made it exciting. We saw some stack-ups, a little bit of drama, not necessarily in the main event, but throughout the heat races and the LCQ. And then no fights, which a lot of people wanted to see a fight. We talked about this on Saturday during the live stream, but no real fights. So I hate to disappoint you on that front. But as I said, decent racing. If we're comparing it directly to the Coliseum, I personally thought the racing was a little bit better. So I thought there was good racing tonight. Once again, not the greatest thing ever, not blowing me out of the world or anything, but it was a solid race. I actually enjoyed this weekend. I enjoyed the heat races. I enjoyed the LCQ. The main event had its moments, so I'm curious to see what the future of the Clash is. Are they going to stay here? Are they going to go to Brazil like the reports are saying? There's a lot of things that can happen with the Clash. We can talk about that in a separate video. Hell, we can talk about it tomorrow on the Monday after. So be here tomorrow night. We will be doing a live stream. I'm probably going to do a different time than what we did last year, but I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow night, we're going to cover the Clash. We're going to talk about more in depth, just the race itself. We'll talk whatever topics come up, whether it's the SVG segment that we're going to start doing on a weekly basis, whether it's the future of the Clash. Where's it going to be? Is it going to be at Bowman Gray? Is it going to be at Brazil? Are they going to keep on doing this, potential football stadium idea? What are they going to do with the Clash? So make sure to tune into that. But let me know what you thought of the race this weekend. Not just tonight's main event, but the entire weekend. I thought it was really cool to see NASCAR kind of go back to its roots. We've really seen them do that over the past couple of years with North Wilkesboro and whatnot. Now Rockingham back on the schedule, Bowman Gray. So yeah, I thought it was cool. I loved the fans that were there. Really excited, really pumped. They were packed in there. That was really cool to see. But Chase Elliott, your winner at Bowman Gray, his first ever Clash win. So once again, let me know what you thought of the race. Tomorrow night, we will be back for a live stream. I'm looking forward to it. The season is underway, and we have to wait 2 weeks for Daytona.